All right. Oh, excuse me. Hey, everyone. This is Ash. Welcome back to the King's Speech. I almost forgot if I've done a New Year's video already because I was going to wish a Happy New Year, but I did do that in my last few videos, so I'm not going to do that in this one. But a couple of quick things before we dive into the chapter proper. The first kind of weird thing that maybe only I'll care about is right now I've got my One Piece Robin hoodie from Crunchyroll, and it's purple, but for some reason, when I look at it on the screen, it's showing as blue. I don't know how the hell that's happening or what's going on, but purple hoodie showing up blue on the screen. Kind of weird, kind of interesting. I just wanted to point that out. With that said, I also ran a poll a little while ago, trying to kind of figure out what direction to take these One Piece videos in the future. And I gotta say, I kind of got a little bit of a mixed message with it, because on the first poll I did ask, did you want, weekly reaction reviews or just weekly reviews, monthly reaction reviews or monthly reviews, and it skewed mostly towards monthly reviews with like the other three kind of evenly divided. And then I did another one after that to try to figure out, all right, did you want reaction review videos together, or did you want them separate, separate reaction video, separate review video? And that one was inconclusive because it was completely opposite to the first, where everyone preferred reaction and review videos together. So after kind of talking with a close friend and kind of thinking about it, I think the direction I am going to kind of take, at least for the near future, unless things change, is I will just start doing separate review and reaction videos. So I'll do my normal reaction videos, live stream them as it's always been done going forward. But then after that, I'll do a separate review recording talking about my thoughts on the chapter, things like that. I still haven't figured out how it's going to work out, like when they're going to release, things like that. But figure stuff out like that. If anyone else has any other opinions, if you want to see more, if you want to keep the same format, reaction and reviews together, let me know. If there's anything else you want to add, let me know. But the friend did point out it might be easier for people to consume my content if it's reactions and reviews separately, because one will lead to shorter videos, which makes it easier for the algorithm and for people to consume. And separating out the reviews also makes it easier for friends like that one, who might necessarily not want to watch the reaction, want to get my thoughts on the chapter through a review. So try that out, see how it goes. So without further ado, let us dive into One Piece chapter 1001, Battle of Monsters on Onigashima. Finally getting a cover page that I really like, with Jinbei floating on jellyfish, just taking a little nap. You have reader request, Jinbei resting luxuriously on a jellyfish bed by Pian Toshikiya. Very good request, love it to bits. And you have, of course, Baiichiro Oda translation, Stephen Paul, lettering by Vanessa Satone. So we pick up from last time with Big Mom, I assume, screaming at Luffy, going, "You miserable little brat! You're still going on about the king of the pirates?" And Luffy's just standing there, stone-faced, just watching. As Kaido goes, "His punch damaged me?" And Zoro's like, "Was that the hockey he learned from the old man in Wano?" And Kid's like, "What was that hockey just now? You can hurt Kaido with physical blows?" And Killer goes, "Fwa, fwa, fwa, then we have a chance of winning." And Law just gritting his teeth as he goes, "Let me just say one thing." And Big Mom goes, "Do you have any idea what it means to be the king of the pirates?" And he's kind of slowly picking himself up with his face furious. And he goes, "What happened after I destroyed him in Kuri? There are only a scant few capable of fighting me. How high will your ceiling go?" God. Of course, and you see Luffy behind, silhouetted by the shadows of Roger, Whitebeard, Rocks, Shanks, and Oden. Oh, God, we'll talk about that at the end. And Kaido's like, "Straw Hat," and he's like, "Heh," as he goes, "Thunder," and he starts sliding towards Luffy with his claw, "Bagua!" As Luffy tries to dodge out of the way, and he gets slammed still and gets sent rolling with the woo 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 woo. He goes, "Dang it, I was reading the future and everything. It's so fast." And you have him head throbbing as he's gotten hit. And Kaido's like, "Very good, boy. You won't let the same one hit you head on twice." And you see Big Mom coming for the attack after that with Heavenly. And she's swinging Prometheus down. And he sees Zoro rushing forward with Foxfire style. Fire Flame Rend! As he slices Prometheus in half before it can touch Luffy. And you have an ah! And you have a whoa, that's Kinemon's technique. Zoro's like, hey, I stole it. Big Mom's like, Prometheus! And you have yow! As he joins himself back together. And then we have a callback to Punk Hazard where Zoro goes, don't lose focus for a single instant, Luffy. These are two Emperors of the Sea. And he's like, huh? As Kaido's coming in to swing the club. And Law does a Chambrous attack to pop Luffy out of the way before Kaido can strike him. And you Traffy! And Law's like, hey, Straw Hat, I just want to make one thing clear. I was already planning to move the samurai below. My God. These are such kids. It's like, huh? It's like, but then you said, Traffy, send them all down below. That made it sound like I was following your orders. Luffy's like, who cares how it sounds? Same difference. And Kid's like, hey, is that right, Trafalgar? You're Straw Hat's henchman now? He's like, I would never. He's like, look, it's no skin off my back which of you two losers wants to follow the other. He's like, what? Jeff, burn them all, Prometheus. Jeff, yes, mama. Jeff, heavenly bonbons. As Prometheus just spits out 3 mini fireballs. Oh my God, these guys are such fucking idiots. And then you have Luffy going, okay then, whoever reacts to these first is a loser. It's like, I'm not playing that game, you idiot. It's like, see, coming up with stupid contests like that is why you guys are all so small time. And Luffy's like, that's fine, I guess you're just losers then. And both of them like, huh? And then make the face as the fireball's coming close to them as they're looking at each other. And Jeff, as they all get slammed by the fireballs. Jeff, what are you trying to accomplish from Zoro? And Kaido goes, get back, Lin Lin. I want to see what they can do. And he's like, again? You just can't help yourself, can you? And you see Zoro's finally getting serious as he puts his bandana on. He goes, don't get in my way, Hirokiri Kamazo. And Killer's like, Zoro goes, you don't hear many people with a laugh that weird. And Killer's just like, huh? He's like, fwa, fwa, fwa. And he goes, if I was using my Punishers back then, as he's got his little arm claws back, he goes, you would be dead right now, Zorojuro. And Zoro's like, the outcome would have been the same. He goes, 3-sword style, Purgatory Onigiri. As he slashes Kaido, and Killer does the same thing with the sliding beheading claw slash attack. And you have Kaido's neck and some flying back, so you can see the little imprint of where the sword struck him. And he goes, whoa, ro, 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 ro. Well done. And Zoro's like, gotta unleash this Enma a bit more. And you have, damn it, I'm gonna finish this all at once. And you have Luffy going into Gear 4 as Kid goes, punk rotten. And you have Gear 4 and Room. And Kaido's just grinning as he goes, come. It's like, whoa, ro, 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 ro. They might as well be monsters in their own right. You see? Okay, I love Kid's thing. He's built himself like a little mecha mini robot with like a skull on the front. Oh, that's kick-ass. That is kick-ass. And you see Luffy, of course, normal Gear 4 thing, and you see Law just floating a bunch of pointed stones towards him. And Kid goes, we know you've got tough skin, but can it save you from being crushed and compacted to death? And you have Luffy with this gum attack. And Law goes, I'll go straight inside the body to deliver a surgical death. Kaido's just loving this. As you have Kong Gun, Luffy smashes him straight in the stomach. And you have Punk Vice as Kid smashes him between 2 robot arms. And you have an as Law does his tact and slams the pointy rocks down on Kaido. And you have ma 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 ha 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 ma 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 ha 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 ha. As you see Thunderclap starting to form around her. She's got Napoleon out in his flaming sword mode. And you have whoa ro 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 ro. As Kaido comes out of the rubble in his dragon form. And he goes, whoa ro 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 ro. It would almost be a shame to kill you, but you leave me no choice. Once you're dead, we'll take everything you have. All your manpower and treasure will belong to us. You've got some poneglyphs too, I assume? Can't wait for that. Whoever wins gets that much closer to King of the Pirates. You have next chapter hits January 31st. All right. So, as usual, again, we'll go from front to the back with thoughts. For anyone that missed it when I said it at the start of the video, it's a quick recap. Going forward from this video onwards, I'll start splitting my videos into reaction and review videos. But for this one, I figured I'd just do the normal one before I did the changeover, just so like everyone knows what's going on, just as a refresher. So again, like Kaido being surprised that Luffy's punch damaged him. I suppose on the one hand, you could look at it charitably and be like, oh, given what level he was at 2 weeks ago, that's why Kaido's so surprised that Luffy's able to damage him now. Like he's surprised by how quickly he's grown and like how much more powerful he's gotten, during that time span that he's thrown into the prison. On the other hand, I also kind of felt like reading it as like, oh, like Kaido being surprised that Luffy was able to punch him because he doesn't know about, Rio, about the advanced armament hockey. And again, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, especially considering that Kaido's whole deal up to this point has been, oh, I'm going to find someone that can kill me. I want the strongest people for my crew. And like, I'm supposed to believe that only Oden and like his scabbards were like the only ones that ever managed to like have advanced Rio to the point where they could damage Kaido. Kaido didn't know that this kind of hockey even existed. Like, I don't know if that's something like we need clarification on, or if like supposed to not read into that or not. But it just felt weird to me. But the the part where Luffy's kind of like standing tall and you have like all the shadows of everyone that beat Kaido down, or anyone he respects, whatever, in that panel. Yeah, I mean, I guess superficially on the one hand, like, oh, it's so cool, like Luffy's kind of coming into his own, Kaido's kind of seeing his potential and all that is a way you could kind of see it. But again, like, I remember that interview from Oda where he was pointing out like, oh yeah, guys, I don't know how I'm gonna have Luffy beat Kaido. I don't want him to just have him punch him and take him down because he's gonna be such a tough opponent to take down. I was like, oh, it's gonna be really, really hard to figure out how he's gonna be taken down. And then what the hell? And then we have moments like this where Kaido's just like, oh yeah, like Luffy just punches him. Kaido's like, oh my god, look at this guy. He's so powerful. And I'm like, really, Oda? Like, that's what you're going for? Like, 2 weeks of training was all it took for him, in his hyperbolic time chamber in Udon prison, for him to be able to do this. Again, maybe I'm just being a little bit too salty and premature, because as we see at the end of this chapter, like Kaido's kind of reveling in the chance to have a good fight. So maybe there is more to it. Like maybe we are going to see, like kind of the limits that, or the gap between him and Kaido, like this, how much further Luffy still has to go. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like that's one issue I had with that particular scene. Second one's kind of a minor niggly thing, which is like Big Mom not being included in that little shadow thing is kind of bullshit. Like One Piece already has a problem with the lack of powerful female fighters in the series, and then given also how badly kind of Miss Big Mom is handled and misused, the fact that out of like, oh, it's like, oh, literally every other emperor is included in that. Even fucking Oden is included in that. But Big Mom being excluded from that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But that's kind of like a minor pet peeve thing of mine. I know other people be like, oh, well, that doesn't mean anything, whatever. So whatever, whoever cares. Third problem I kind of have with this is a bigger one, which is that this kind of also gave me Katakuri vibes, because anyone that doesn't know, I am one of the sole people that does not like the Luffy Katakuri fight at all. I thought it was really badly handled. It doesn't hold together thematically or cohesively at all. I feel like people projected their own ideas onto that to kind of make everything fit just because they liked Katakuri, but I don't think from a story perspective it worked. And this gives me the same vibes again. Because again, like this moment kind of reads as like, oh, compared to how Kaido was kind of called Luffy, when he first knocked him down with the same Thunder Bagua, and he's like, oh, what was that? What were you going to be king of again, boy? This scene could kind of be like, Kaido kind of accepting or gaining like a newfound respect for Luffy, being like, oh, I did kind of look down on him. This kid has more potential than I give him credit for. All that, blah blah blah. Which, sure, I mean, to a certain extent, kind of works. But the problem I have with, like, again, same problem I had with the Katakuri fight, is that there's no reason why Kaido needing to respect Luffy is really a thing. Like, we don't know enough about Kaido, his motivations, his backstory, or anything like that for us to buy into the emotional investment of, why does it matter that Kaido needs to have respect for Luffy? Why does it matter to him so much that he needs to see, that he's as powerful as all these figures that came before him? I think that's where this kind of falls flat. And Oda could have easily rectified this, because I'm going to bring this up a few times. And like, Oda specifically set up the whole thing to be like, oh, this entire raid is going down on the night of the Fire Festival, which is a day for the remembrance of the dead. And it's obvious that Kaido has some kind of unresolved trauma around, pirate betrayals and what happened at God Valley and what happened with Rocks. And he's got some kind of death wish. And we saw this before when he saw the scabbards, he's kind of imagining like Oden's shadow kind of like looming large over them. And so Oda could have really done a lot more to kind of tie that in thematically with this whole idea of, a day for the remembrance of the dead is when the shadows of Kaido's past are coming back, to haunt him, and that's how we're gonna like get into his backstory, his motivations, and things like that. And it's kind of disappointing. Like we're like almost 100 chapters into Wano. Kind of the Fire Festival has kind of just been used as like a little bit of a decorative setting. It hasn't really been utilized to the potential I think it's had, or that Oda's implied it has. But again, like we'll have to wait and see if anything does happen with it, because I still am going to maintain that when dawn does break, when the actual day of the Fire Festival ends, that's when Wano will conclude and Kaido will be defeated. So we'll have to see if Oda's going to pull in all those disparate threads he kind of scattered throughout, with the whole, swords having souls, the curses, with the samurai of Ringo, all that stuff. So we'll see if he brings it back. But yeah, honestly, like superficial coldness, but Oda kind of trying to keep backloading all these mysteries and answers to the end of the arc, being like, oh, you'll get the answer, keep going further, you'll get the answer at the end, really doesn't work. Like, he needs to start sprinkling in better breadcrumbs throughout his story. That said, I am glad that Kaido's just like, yeah, despite taking all this damage, he is still a tank. He's not a pushover. I like that, we're finally starting to see some of the limits to Luffy's future sight. It's not like, get out of jail free card. Like, as soon as he has future sight, he can dodge any attack no matter what. So I'm glad we're seeing that come into play here. We're starting to see the limits of it. I just love the aesthetic of his Thunder Bago attack so much. It's like the club flying, the spikes, little bolt of thunder. Everything about it works for me. Zoro cutting the flame thing on the one hand, it's like, yeah, whatever, it's not a big deal. Again, I know myself and a lot of other people kind of hoping that Zoro would get a little bit more development and growth in Wano. I know myself especially, I was hoping we kind of get him learning a little bit more about swordsmanship, learning more about the breadth of all things, kind of Oda kind of semi-retconned into being like, oh, it's just Rio hockey, as long as you have this hockey, you can cut whatever you want, you can cut whatever you don't want. I thought this Flame Ren was going to be like an aspect of that, but apparently not. It's just Zoro has powerful new sword and he just mastered the technique of cutting fire sometime, which again is a little bit disappointing, but at this point, whatever, we'll have to see if anything comes out of Zoro's stuff. I'm still holding out for something to do with the curses for him, because again, this is one of the things, like I mentioned this in my last video, I don't like to give Oda too much credit, but this is the one where I'm like, all right, since chapter 100, he's kind of been steadily going back and hinting at the whole aspect of like cursed swords being a thing. And especially once we came to Wano, like that was one of the first things we got a mention of in Wano. It was like, oh, don't touch that cursed sword. Bad things will happen to you. I'm still expecting something to come out of that. I don't know if that's a plot line that Oda's just dropped at this point. I don't think so. I think it'd be bad storytelling if he did. But I'm still waiting for something to come out of that with Zoro. So we'll see. Oh God, the childishness of like Law, Luffy, and Kid like just bickering on the one hand. I'm like, yeah, of course, they're like three little siblings that are just like fighting amongst each other. Like they have that brothers kind of energy. I'm like, yeah, on the one hand, that's fine, but I don't know, like it felt kind of a little bit out of character for Law to be like, "Oh, I'm not your friend, Baka." It's like, "Oh, I don't listen to you. I'm my own captain." Like, it felt weirdly out of character for Law for Otis, like doing it for the sake of a joke. I don't know if anyone else felt the same way, but it just felt odd as off as in a moment. Which brings us to the other thing, which is really, really annoyed me. This is like the one thing I really hate is we get a call back to Punk Hazard again. For those of you that don't remember, back in Punk Hazard after Luffy got his ass handed to him by Caesar when he did the whole oxygen suction thing and suffocated him, Robin, and Frankie. When Zoro heard about that from who was it? I think he heard about it from Usopp. Like back in Punk Hazard when he got super mad at Luffy. He's like, "Hey Luffy, you can't be digging around anymore. We're in the new world. You have to take things seriously." And Luffy's like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, I got it, guys. Yeah, sure." Nothing came of that. Like instantly just back to no one gives a shit. I want to be as reckless as I was before. Who cares? No consequences. And it's annoyed me ever since then because Oda really has kind of woobified the new world compared to the Grand Line in Paradise. Like so far in the new world, he's retconned so many of the injuries and dialed back on so much of like the consequences and the danger that almost any injury they sustain or any conflict they come into feels inconsequential because it doesn't feel like there's ever going to be a consequence or a drawback like say where there was on Thriller Bark where Zoro being hurt from that arc kind of led into their defeat at Sabaudi, where they had to kind of, take care of him constantly, and his injuries kind of like holding them back a little bit. Or the same with Barati and Arlong Park, where Zoro got the huge slash across his thing. He's bleeding profusely from it, which kind of handicapped him a bit in Arlong Park. There hasn't really been that kind of carryover in the New World a lot. And this was a complaint I had frequently throughout Wano, where I've said that the Straw Hats are not taking this conflict seriously. They're not giving it, they're not approaching it with the gravitas that it deserves. For them to be like, oh, we're facing two emperors. They were really taking it lightly. The most glaring example was where, after Luffy was thrown in prison, Robin, Frankie, and Usopp were just sitting there drinking soba and being like, oh, yeah, Luffy got thrown into prison. No big deal, guys. You'll be fine. Oh, yeah. And a lot of that means it has undercut a lot of the emotional impact of later scenes, like Nami doing the whole, Luffy will be king of the pirates, where people are trying to defend it by being like, oh, this is such a powerful emotional moment because Nami thought she was going to die. And so, she's still declaring that Luffy's going to be king of the pirates, even though she has an out. I mean, at that point, I'm so out of the immersement of the story that I cannot for a second believe that Nami is actually thought she was going to die. And so the emotional impact of a lot of that doesn't really work because we know Oda's not really going to follow through on any of the threats he's been making post time skip. And especially like this, especially undercuts the moment from the last chapter where, Kinamon's like getting all emotional and crying, and Luffy's like, oh my god, yeah, how dare you hurt my friends? He's getting furious and kind of getting in to like the anger moment where he's like, oh, I have to take down the big bad. This undercuts a lot of it where he's like, oh, it kind of diminishes their sacrifice a little bit when they're being so blasé about the fact, these guys fought for 20 years to have a chance to take down Kaido. They kind of built him up to be like, this imposing, immovable figure. And then we have these three guys kind of just joking about being like, oh, take it seriously, Luffy. Yeah, of course I will. Let's play a game. Like, this again feels like Oda ticking off a checklist and being like, oh, I need a comedy mode, huh? Can't be too serious the entire chapter. And it just doesn't work. Like, he doesn't have the natural cadence or groove that he used to post time skip. Like, the best moment I can kind of think of where he balanced it perfectly was again the second crocodile fight, where he does the water Luffy thing, which is a great comedic moment, but it never kind of diminished the threat the crocodile posed, nor kind of like the emotional investment or resonance or connections the readers had to Vivi and the conflict of Alabasta. Whereas here, because it's been so slapdash and lackluster, like it just makes it even more glaring how it stands out when he makes dumb gigs like this. But again, I'm probably going to be the outlier in feeling like that. I know a lot of people be like, ha ha ha, it's so funny. These guys are such dumb shits, and whatever. It was interesting to see kind of the number twos, the vice captains also trying to do the whole thing on Kaido. I still think they're eventually going to get shut down to the lower levels to fight either king or queen. Although, I wonder if this is going to end up with Zoro and Killer teaming up against King. Because I just had a random thought, because we still haven't seen King's hybrid form yet. And I've always suspected in his hybrid form he might have four wings, because whenever he transforms into a pterodon, he only has like the pterodon wings, and his black, Tengu angel wings, whatever, disappear. And I've always thought that when he transforms into his hybrid form, he's going to have four wings coming out, his regular two black ones and his two pterodon wings, which is how he got the wildfire nickname, because you'll be able to fan huge flames with four wings at once. So I wonder if that's going to end up with him being like wielding two swords on each hand or something like that, and have Killer and Zoro fighting him. Random thought. I'll have to wait and see what happens. I do love Kaido being a meathead, though, who's just like reveling in the chance to finally have like a good fight. I just loved like the himbo aspect of that, where he's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have a barroom brawl. Like, yeah, that's what I've been waiting for. I think that's the only thing that's actually made him an interesting, like relatable character thus far out of like everything. Because so far on this arc, he's kind of just been a cat's paw to Orochi. And I feel like a lot of the readers' resentment and like anger towards the villain character has been more towards Orochi than Kaido's. He's kind of been in the background. He's like, yeah, he participates in things, but he's not really the one that's kind of like the actual villain, quote unquote, of the arc thus far. So yeah. That said, again, like I said, I really love Kid's little mecha, little floating UFO ship. I love the design of that. Super badass, especially with the little screaming skull with the spikes. Badass design. Law being a dumb churd is like, oh, I'm gonna tear you out from the inside, and just fucking lobbing pointed rocks at Kaido. I fully expected him to do that. What was like the radiology knife where he's like dissolving Doflamingo's organs. I expected him to do that attack, not be like, I'm gonna throw pointed rocks at you, Kaido. That'll work. Like such a dumb shit, but yeah, whatever. Nice to see the tax landing. Again, Kaido not going into his hybrid form at this point is also starting to bug me a little bit, because we've seen with his dragon form, like the Scourge were able to hold off his dragon form pretty well. And I don't think that, Law and the rest of them are going to have as much trouble with it. Like, yeah, Big Mom is there, so maybe that complicates things a little bit, but they still haven't seemed to struggle with it a lot. So the two ideas I'm wondering are, A, is Kaido just holding off on his hybrid form because he knows it's too powerful, and that, he'll finish the fight in an instant if he does go into it. And so he's trying to like basically like, hold off on as long as he can to kind of drag out the pleasure of the fight for as long as he can. Well, the second one, which is a theory I posed, I'm not sure if I talked about it on here yet, is I wonder, because I think it's all but confirmed at this point that Kaido was held on Punk Hazard at some point in the future. Whether he was raised and grown there, as my personal theory suggests, that he was Vegapunk's experiment, his child, and he was born and raised on Punk Hazard, or whether he was just taken there after one of his defeats at the Marines' hands and experimented on. I think it's almost conclusive we can conclude that he was at Punk Hazard at some point. And given that we know, Vegapunk apparently experimented on prisoners for gigantification with regards to, because the Ancient Giants also, the numbers also came from Punk Hazard. So we know he's gone to Punk Hazard at some point. And given that we know that Vegapunk experimented on, the Ancient Giants, on gigantification, on Devil Fruits and Awakening, I wonder if Kaido and all the calamities are similar to the Awakened Zoan Jailer beasts, or if they're like the Minx and Sulong form where they go like unhinged. I wonder if that's why they're holding off on the hybrid forms. It's like their last desperate, ace in the hole, because they'll be unable to control themselves if they get into that form, or it's like really hard for them to break out of that hybrid form. I wonder if that's why all of them so far have only kind of transformed between their full zone forms or their base form, because even like Marco, like they haven't like Marco, they haven't like selectively also transformed limbs. Like we saw Ulti, like doing her hybrid form, kind of half transformed with the legs and claws and everything of the dinosaur form, rather than like Page One's full hybrid thing. So it's kind of curious and telling that Jack, even when he's about to be defeated by the Minx, was still in his Zoan form, and he didn't go into his hybrid form, which should have given him a power boost. So there must have been a reason, apart from just Oda being a dick and trying to tease it out and hold it out for as long as he can. There must be a reason for that. Which reminded me that we haven't actually seen we haven't seen Chopper go into his monster form yet. And I wonder if that's going to be the impetus for us finally getting confirmation one way or the other, because I theorized about this on Twitter. But if Chopper does go into his monster form, and if Queen or one of the others sees him eating the Rumble Ball and sees that he's able to maintain his consciousness in monster form, I wonder if Queen will be able to steal one of the Rumble Balls and do what Chopper did to him and start mass producing Rumble Balls on his end for Kaido and his goons, so that they're able to go into their Awakened Zone forms and stay in that form permanently, which I think would do a lot to give Queen back some of his, which would make Queen a credible threat again. Because again, up to this point, he has been just a massive joke, and I really would like to see that change, because he has not been established as any kind of threat. So we'll see if anything like that happens or not in the next little while. But yeah, I think that's everything on there. We're getting into the conflicts and fights and things. I'm still hoping for a reversal at some point where, Kaido and his goons start really knocking them down. Because right now, this has been a really lackluster arc in terms of like conflict and scale, like emotional investment and everything. We really need something to start flipping the tables. Because again, Kaido's whole thing of being like, oh, I have a reputation for, taking in pirate crews, breaking their spirits, and then having them join me, hasn't really lived up to it. We'll see where it goes. There's going to be a break next week, so I'll probably fill the gap with either Lazarus or Leader read through sometime for next week. Probably not going to do anything One Piece related because I just don't have anything ready. So with that said, thank you all for tuning in, joining in for this reaction review. Hope you enjoyed it. I think this is one of the shortest ones we've ever done, but it was all fighting a chapter, so not really too surprising. As always, if you like my videos and content, please do like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Like I said, going forward, I will try to switch over to doing separate reaction and review videos. But if it's like this chapter, then where it turns out to just be all fighting and there wasn't really much to discuss, then I might just do a review and reactions together. If there's not really much I have to talk about or speculate on in a review video. But we'll do that on a case-by-case basis as I go forward. I'm also going to say I might also just prioritize the reviews over the reactions. So if I'm not feeling up to reaction, I'll just do a review of the chapter with my thoughts. But yeah, I think that's about it. Hoping Wano goes good from here. Hope everyone's doing all right with the news cycle and everything else that's been going on. I know it's been a lot. Me personally as well, even though I'm in Canada, I've been feeling it the last week. It's been super draining. So take care. Stay safe. Until next time, this is Ash. I'll talk to you all later.